President Obama tweeted this 2 hours and 14 minutes before you and I started the podcast. Today's Supreme Court decision effectively guts a key pillar of the Voting Rights Act, freeing state legislatures to gerrymander legislative districts to systematically dilute and weaken the voting power of racial minorities so long as they do it under the guise of partisanship rather than explicit racial bias. And it serves as just one more example of how a majority of the current court seems intent on abandoning its vital role in ensuring equal participation in our democracy and protecting the rights of minority groups against minority overreach. The good news is that such setbacks can be overcome, but that will only happen if citizens across the country who cherish our democratic ideals continue to mobilize and vote in record numbers, not just in the upcoming midterms or in high-profile races, but in every election and every level. If you want to go to the story, Rob, so I can read it, and I'll turn it over to you. So New York Times, so Supreme Court weakens a landmark civil rights era law and aids GOP efforts to control the House. If you want to go a little bit lower, Supreme Court on Wednesday hollowed a landmark civil rights era law that increased minority representation in Congress and elsewhere, striking down the majority black congressional district in Louisiana and opening the door for more redistricting across the country that could aid Republicans' effort to control the House. Ruling 6-3, the court's conservative majority found that Louisiana's district, represented by Democrat Khalil Fields, rely too heavily on race, and Chief Justice John Roberts described the 6th Congressional District as a snake that stretches more than 200 miles to link parts of Shreveport, Alexandria, Lafayette, and Baton Rouge. The map is an unconstitutional gerrymander, said Samuel Alito, wrote for 6 conservatives. And if you show the map, Rob, I think there's a breakdown by New York Times. If you want to go to the New York Times article, that if Connor hasn't sent it to you yet, New York Times, what should you put in it? I think the main, while I'm talking to the governor, he sent it to me. It's a New York Times story. I don't know if you have it or not. So is that the one? Okay. While you're doing this, what are your thoughts about this, the story and what Barack Obama just said?
So I think what President Obama said is absolutely correct, where it feels very odd that you can say that we are okay with partisan gerrymandering, but no other forms, especially when you consider the fact that over 92% of this country has congressional maps that are not competitive. This country is so gerrymandered. And it's actually embarrassing in the way that it's been gerrymandered. I have long believed that we need national redistricting reform, because this is not okay where we continue to have politicians that are picking their voters instead of voters picking their politicians. We need to have national gerrymandering reform. I also know that what's happening right now and what we are continuing to see, and why this is such a heated issue for a lot of people, is you think about what's happening right now in just the past year, where these decisions that are being made by the Trump-Vance administration on going after these basic democratic frameworks, right? The idea that we should nationalize elections, even though we know that's unconstitutional. Like part of the beauty of the Constitution is there are state rights. We are in control of our elections. Mm-hmm. So we should not be nationalizing elections. The idea that somehow we should get rid of mail-in balloting, which actually we sued, Maryland. I sued the Trump administration on this, and we're going to win in court on this because the president and the federal government does not have the authority to do that. That when the president's talking about things like, well, we should take control of the ballot boxes and we need your voter rolls. Again, unconstitutional. The fact that the president is calling up Florida and Texas and Missouri and North Carolina and saying, you all should do mid-decade redistricting. By the way, everyone else, you can't. But you all should do it. This is blatant, what is happening right now. And what's happening right now is this is an assault on the basic democratic framework and the basic democratic values. And so I think what the president said is not just President Obama. What he said is not just factual, but I think he highlights the bigger concern that a lot of us have about some of these actions that are then taking place. When you look at that decision, the decision around Louisiana and the Supreme Court decision, this was happening because there was just a basic and an intentional and a racialized gerrymandering that was then taking place that was disenfranchising black voters. So they're saying we have to come up with ways of being able to make sure that black voters, after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, would actually be enfranchised and be able to be part of this electoral system. By doing this, by this action, this does represent one of the largest forms of political redlining that we have now seen in generations. And so I am very much for national redistricting reform. I think Congress, on so many different levels, Congress is just completely failing to do its job. This is the most unproductive Congress, not to mention the fact that this Congress has actually been out of work this year more than they've been in work.
Lowest approval rating Congress has had in the history.
Well, how can you get high approval rating when you're not at work? Like, the government has been shut down longer than it's been open this year. This Congress is almost laughable, what is happening right now. And I think when you're looking at what's happening with our Congress, they need to be taking up this issue, and they are not. And so we continue now seeing how states are then doing this continual race to a bottom because there's just no type of guidance that we're getting from Congress on.
Yeah, when you think about gerrymandering, it's three ways, right? Partisan, racial, and bipartisan. Very rarely is there bipartisan gerrymandering, but it happens every once in a while. And so this one's more on the racial side. Can you go back to the New York Times article you pulled up? So meaning if this passes, just to put it out there, this case hands the House to the Republicans. Democrats who hold 24 seats in Louisiana, you mean to tell me that 24 is going to go to 12?
Yeah.
Republicans gain 12 more seats just in this state, Rob? Does this apply to any other state, or is it just a Louisiana case that they're talking about here?
I believe, according to this chart, it says these states. So I think it's Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana.
So all of those states combined, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, all of them, Democrats hold 24. After this, Republicans get 12 more seats.
And if you look at this map, right, if you look at the 24, even that's just a fraction of this map, right? But then you take a look to the right side, look at that. Is that really what we think is fair representation? And this becomes the challenge. And by the way, it's actually not even just about these states. What it's also doing is you're now setting a legal precedent that you're going to now have other states who are then going to try to navigate this. It's the same reason why the Supreme Court earlier proved, because of their ruling, that partisan gerrymandering is allowed, that partisan gerrymandering is legal. So you saw how other states were then moving and using and being completely blatant about the fact that it's like, yep, this is a partisan gerrymander. Wow. I want 3 more seats. I want 3 more Republican seats. I want 3 more Democratic seats. And do you know why they were unafraid to say that? Was because of precedent. So now this is adding on a whole new layer of precedent.
Yeah, because gerrymandering is what? Once every 10 years. Right?
Correct.
It's
on
once
the
every
census.
10 years on the census.
On the census.
And typically, who gets criticized the most? Illinois, I believe, is one of them, right? Can you go to Illinois gerrymandering? Because they have like a monopoly on their House, on their representatives, if I'm not mistaken. The numbers in Illinois, it has to be, what is the number? I think it's honestly like 86% is on the Democratic side in the state of Illinois, 14-3. So 14-3 is what it is with Illinois, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Is it? Yeah, 14-3. So Illinois Congressional Alabama Democrats created a 14-3 to Republicans when they did this in 2021. And so often cited as one of the most aggressive gerrymanderers in the U.S., it packs Republican voters into a few districts, reducing GOP seats from 5 to only 3. Okay, California tried to do it as well. And they're at 43-9. Can you type in same thing, California? I think it's 43-9. If they were able to pass it in California, it would be 48-4, which means California is going to be controlled on the left for God knows how long. I want to say they're right now at 43-9 with 43-9. And if they pass it. So, people will say this happens on both sides. It happens on both sides. And if they could do it, they would do it. And by the way, there's groups of people on both sides that are like, I hate gerrymandering. Let's put a stop to it. None of this should be happening. Let go of it. Left, right, center. Just let the people vote the way they're voting. We don't need to be doing this part. And there's a lot of people on the Republican and Democratic side. And then there's the people that are like, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it. If Pritzker did it, I'm going to do it. If you're going to, and then, there's no stopping there.
And this becomes the problem with this larger political system, that it's not even just the back and forth, right? Because you do have the issue of the back and forth, and let's be clear, like, I understand why you have the back and forth, because you cannot have people who are just trying to rob an election in front of your face, and you're just sitting there and taking it.
I got to get you to dinner. So
but
finish that thought.
I'm not. But so you can't let that be the case.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to fight. You got to be able to fight, particularly when our democracy is on the line. Yet at the same time, we need Congress to put an end to this, because these type of actions, what are happening right now, the fact that you have districts in Maryland, in my state, that are just not competitive, that when a person wins a primary, that's it. It's over. They're not going to lose in a general. And unfortunately, that's the way it works in the vast majority of these congressional districts all across the country, and even in my state, where the biggest competition you're going to have is a primary.